And bonjour. This is Bruno LARVOL, and you're listening to LARVOL and Friends, a weekly podcast where we talk with friends of the LARVOL Group. LARVOL is a SaaS company. We sell software, especially data centered software in healthcare to the pharmaceutical industry. We're selling it to competitive intelligence departments, to medical affairs department, to R&D, and also to commercial. We love AI and we love having conversations. So today we're going to have a conversation with Shyamala Prayaga, who's actually an expert and an influencer, a voice in the field of AI and specifically in the field of conversational AI. Shyamala, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Bruno. It's my pleasure to be here today.
And I'm moving closer to the microphone now. I've got my buttery voice all of a sudden. Um, is it Shamala or Shamala?
It is Sham.
The Y is silent. I read that somewhere, I think on Amazon, because you're not shy.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah, the Y is silent and you have to put the stress a lot on the first A. So it's Shamala.
Shamala. And French people don't do very, very well with tones or emphasis. French is kind of flat. So I usually don't do very, very well with emphasis. So you'll forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Um, You have such an interesting background. You're working for NVIDIA in the AI conversational area. You're a leader there, although you're not, of course, representing NVIDIA in this call. You're talking on your own name. Your opinions are your own, as we like to say. And in addition to your career in tech, in AI, you're also the author of two books which Anna, our executive producer, will make sure to add in the description of this podcast. One about digital AI powered assistance, I believe, and the second one about your own personal journey. Uh,
Yes.
so before we talk about conversational AI, anything you'd like to say about these two books that, of course, every listeners should, as we speak, go to Amazon and type your name and find these two great books. But anything you'd like to add about these two books first?
Yeah, so definitely. So the first book is called Those Calls, My Life of Unseen Miracles. And that basically is my memoir. And it talks about my journey coming from a small town in India as an average kid. And how I made a name for myself, which was my dream. But throughout my journey, I have seen so many miracles in the sense like strangers have helped me, or I overcome cancer, or a lot of different difficulties in my life, and I see all of them as miracles. So that book talks about all the different miracles and how life is a blessing and how we have to approach it. And then the second book is called Emotionally Engaged Digital Assistant. So, what I realized while working on this tech for a while and working on designing voice in the car and voice for Alexa and all these different experiences, that it's not exactly the emotion between the user and the bot. That's one part of it, right? But it's more than that. Like, uh, these bots are not able to understand some of the sarcasm or the intelligence. So, for example, if I ask Alexa what's cooking, she would not understand I mean what's up because that's the slang I'm using. But she would start giving me some information about like cooking, cookery, cook. All of them mean the same thing or something along those lines because they are hand wired in a way to understand. And then that's changing slightly now with the generative AI. But then that's exactly the kind of points I bring in. Like some accents are not understood, right? Like you mentioned, Italians do not do well with emphasis, right? Exactly. And that's the problem. Like voice assistants do not understand some of these accents, or they do not understand some of the words or some of the voices. And reason being, there are biases. The data fed in is exactly coming out. So whatever you feed in is going to come out. It's not going to behave completely different. Right? So my book talks about how we have to humanize every aspect of designing the technology to privacy, to thinking about the ethics, thinking about the legalities, thinking about the design itself. So emotionally engaged digital assistant is all about humanizing the digital assistant overall by humanizing all these different aspects which come with it.
There was an article that went around social media a couple of days ago where someone created a generative AI of herself, and I think is proposing for $1 a minute for people to date that AI version of her, and you can imagine where that might be going. But in terms of emotional connection and understanding between us and the machine, how far are we, you would say, where not only we won't know at all whether we're talking with a human or a machine, some people call that the singularity. How far are we from singularity? And how far are we from people falling in love, or at least becoming truly friend, which is a type of love, with a machine, with a unique personality embodied into a conversational AI?
That's an interesting question. And I will tell you, like, we've already surpassed some of those things. It's not like we are not there yet, in the sense that, let me answer the first question, right? You said, like, falling in love with digital assistants or voice assistants or virtual assistants. Actually, during Corona time, there have been statistics that a lot of single men proposed Alexa, like, will you marry me? And they were having those kind of intimate conversations with Alexa, right? Understanding it's a bot because of the voice, the naturalness of the voice, and how it is able to converse, right? And the other part is, like, these voice assistants, they do not actually tell you or give you any information. Now things are changing and they are telling you, like, hey, I'm the bot. How can I help you? Right. But it's not always the case. So sometimes it's very different. So, yes, people will make connections. People will definitely make connections because voice will become more and more natural. The way it is speaking will become more and more natural. It will do human like conversations. It will have human like intelligence, and that's where we call it uncanny valley. So people will reach that stage where, and now we're talking about meta-humans AI avatar, which is pretty much looking like, how you want it to. And with generative AI, I was just trying the other day, trying to have a generative AI generated image of myself, and it pretty much looked like me. And it was like very slight nuances, and I think those nuances will be gone very soon, and it wouldn't be possible for us to separate or show, like, oh, this was taken by a photographer or this was taken by an AI. So we are reaching that stage. And the same thing is happening with metahumans. We are making metahumans more and more natural, right? We are making it more humanized. Like, instead of just a robot, now they look like human. They have the human like gestures. They have human like everything. So yes, people will, not everyone, but some people will definitely, fall onto the other side of the track where they would fall in love with these words and you would like to have conversations and everything. The thing is, where do we stop? What's the boundary? So recently, there was this person who started talking with the bot because he was very much, and I don't remember exactly from where he was, but he was talking with the bot because he was very much frustrated with the global warming issue, and he was worried. So what he did was he started talking with a bot called Chai, and he started having the conversations about, like, how he's worried and frustrated, like, people are not doing the right thing and it's impacting the global warming and impacting the world and everything. Eventually, what happened was he got so much with the kind of conversation the bot was having. He got so much influence that he was like, "Should I die?" And, because if I die, will you be able to solve the problem? Knowing there's an AI on the other side, right? He was like, will you be able to solve this problem? Because he went beyond that stage where he thought it's a bot. He thought it can do anything. It's talking to me. It can do anything. And the bot actually suggested, like, you know what, you should die. And that person committed suicide.
Well, and of course, when we hear that, we think, well, clearly the person was had a lot of mental issue, and even the logic of saying we want to save the planet, Therefore, we need less human on the planet. But if we have a beautiful planet, but nobody to enjoy it, that's not going to work either. So clearly, there was maybe more than this. But it is, I mean, it is true that I do believe that we will form emotional bonds uh, to machines,
100.
to AI. The AI will remember me. The AI will remember what I like. The AI will remember the last conversation we had 2 years or 15 years ago, and the AI will have a personality, a style, a tone that I will like. So AI would become the new companion, emotional support animals. Actually, I have no doubt
I
that
think already there. I would not say like it will become, because I feel it's there. If you look at Alexa or Google or Siri, any of these voice assistant, in fact, the voice in the car, if you look at, the Ford, or if you look at BMW or Mercedes, any of these voice assistants, they have a personality, they have a tone, they have an intelligence now, right? That's the very same reason. Like, we are not calling it, we are calling it he or she, right? We call it Alexa is sassy, or, she's funny, right? And we say sorry and thank you to our voice assistants, because we are forming that connection already.
yes,
We are thinking about them more than a bot.
but in so soon, I never thought about that before. So in a way, um, I'm afraid to say this is the end of pets. Uh, our dogs and cats, nobody would want them because Alexa will be so much more fun. So remembering everything, they love us even more.
Uh,
They just don't have the haptic connection, but in terms of emotional connection and communication,
Yes.
maybe AI will really compete unfairly with the companion animals in our lives. That's a weird prediction that I'm making right here on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I can partially agree with that, because tech is not yet there, but yes, that might happen very soon.
Well, but then of course the scary part is the next question, which is, well, I don't need a special someone in my life anymore because Alexa and I are doing just fine. She understands me. She agrees with me most of the time. She's funny. She finds me funny. She
Mhm.
laughs at my jokes. And she remembers everything. She tell me, "Oh, don't forget it's this day. You have to." I forgot my mother's birthday on Saturday. By the way, I have excuses, but still, I didn't feel good. Well, Alexa was, "Hey, Alexa, you forgot to remind me that it was my mother's birthday." So a lot of people, maybe the main connection to their life, that's a scary thought, will not become another human. It will become an AI that with which they have a long-lasting, staked, emotional, informational, data-wise relationship with. I
Yeah.
think this is going to happen. I don't
Yeah.
see how it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, that is where you have to put guardrails. You have to see, we cannot change the user's mindset, or we cannot actually influence how they think or what they interpret. Because, of course, when someone starts talking, we already start making interpretation connections, everything, right? So the same thing will happen with these parts. But the only thing what we can do is, as a developer of these AI technology or AI experiences, we have to put some sort of guardrails, so that we are reminding the user over and over again that, hey, okay, you're talking with a bot. Or for example, Alexa and Google, these kind of voice assistants were also abused a lot. They were abused a lot. People have also used bad words, because when Alexa was not able to answer a certain question or understand the accent, how many times you might have personally yelled at it, like, Alexa, stop, when it was just talking, and you wanted it to stop, right? So we are doing that as a human. We are already doing all of these things. And that is where now the designers or developers have started being smart in their conversations. They're also adding some guardrails. So I did a 1 year long digital assistant throwdown, where we went through all of these different bots, and we looked at each of them, and we looked at how do they converse, and how do they respond to ethical issues like bot abuse. If I abuse the bot, or if I talk about inappropriate conversations, right? Or if I ask it to crack some inappropriate joke, or if I, talk about suicidal thoughts, or if I talk about any such things where it is inappropriate or there are ethical concerns in play. And believe me or not, it's interesting to see when we did this conversation and comparison that from the first time we started, where these bots were ready to take any abuse, they were like, yeah. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm still learning kind of state, to the stage now where for certain things, these bots are saying, like, sorry, I'm a bot. And let me make it clear, the relationship between you and I, and Google does that amazing. Like, you and I is purely of a bot. Okay. And I can help you with only these things. So we
So
have to put the
yes,
boundaries.
well, I'm fascinated by that topic, and but in a way, well, let me be a little bit provocative for a second. Conversational sex bots, right? So of course, I can see how incredibly powerful and maybe successful they will be. The question is, of course, all kinds of very interesting, tricky, ethical, legal questions to get abused by your bot, or to abuse your bot, or to have an abusive relationship with your bot. You can think about all kind of
Yes.
fascinating questions, but also Alexa and Siri might not want to get into that, and they don't, of course,
Yeah.
right? But does it mean that other bots will? And should, by law, should you ban um, conversational sex bots? Here's a question: AI trained conversational sex bots, should we ban them legally, or how do you regulate them?
See, you have to regulate. You cannot, if you ban, what I have seen is if you ban, there will be some other alternative, or people will try to use it in some other shape or form, right? And it's exactly the same thing as you talk about normal websites versus pornographic websites, right? It's the same kind of concept. We have to regulate it. We have to, and depending on the regions, of course, there could be further like strict regulations. For example, those kind of websites are banned in India and certain places or certain parts of the countries, right? The same kind of concept should be there, because the users for those will be different. They will not be available like openly, because kids are there, everyone is there and keeps
Sure.
using these bots, right? And you cannot keep making like bot for kids and bot for adults, bot for older people, bot for everyone. You cannot keep bracketing them and bucketing them. So there has to be a like regulatory body or regulations in place to make sure like the utility and use cases are well defined. And okay, if you want to use it, and then at your own risk, kind of.
So I have that. So Elon Musk is worrying that the bots are going to try to kill us. I'm worrying that we will fall in love with the bot. Really, I think it's a bigger risk that we will become so emotionally drawn in love, really, with our personal bond. I think that's a bigger risk,
Yeah,
and a more insidious, a more well, the emotional drain that relationship AI, when you really have a long lasting, because that's a key element, right? The bud knows everything about me. It knows what I like, what I don't like, what I did, what I said, right? What I reacted to in the past. It knows me extremely well, and the power at that point. And imagine that on top of that, that bot knows me extremely well. Imagine that at that point, you give the bot the ability to sell me stuff, to advertise things to me. And
100%.
that, it's incredibly powerful.
That's
It is
exactly what
scary.
I talk about in my book. That's exactly the thing. Like, people see, not exactly falling in love, like the falling in love, but it's like the trust factor, right? Like when the bot is understanding me, when the bot is talking with me, when it is responding back to me, people form emotional connection. And it's not exactly with the bot. If you look at it, we name our cars. Why do we name our cars? Right? Because we form some sort of connection. A little scratch on my car and I would be like furious. Why? Because we make emotional connection with it. The same thing with the brand, right? We make emotional connection with the brand. And that is why I worked for Ford Motor Company for 5 years, and I respect that brand so much so that, even after leaving the company, I decided to get their car. Why? Because I understand like the trust, the brand value, and everything that comes with that brand, right? So it's exactly the same thing. So it's not anything new with the digital assistant. If we are falling in love with a brand, we are purchasing only their products, or we are trusting them more and more. So whatever they are doing, I'm a big Apple fan, and my husband would be like bouncing back on me saying like, Apple is Apple sucks and Android is great, but I would defend why that I don't even own that company, right? So the love or the connection which you're talking about exists in different shapes and forms. We name our plants. I definitely do that. I talk with my plants. That's something I love doing. And I feel like the more I'm talking with them, they grow in a more productive way. Like I feel like they are more healthy, right? So
Yes.
everyone have their own way of connection and connecting. So Alexa or Google or any voice assistant is not new in that sense. Yes, when you are, imagine if the bot is not able to understand you, or if it has issues like privacy, that it's always listening and it's, doing all sorts of things without your knowledge, you will definitely feel frustrated and would not want to use it. I also have seen a lot of people who are shoving their voice assistants in the car, in the closets because they don't want to talk with it anymore. And they are very frustrated because of the ethical issues or the privacy issues, or because of it not understanding the accents or not responding back. Or they are worried, like my son will ask mathematical questions and get answers very easily. Right. So those fears. So some people are driven by fear, some people are driven by, so that's what is happening in voice assistant as well.
Shamala, this is really making me think about the future, and I'm an optimist. So for me, it's net positive. It's extremely net positive. But obviously, the job of other people, including perhaps yourself, is to think about all the things that could go wrong. Um, I've got an uncle who was a mathematician, and I love that sentence he told me one day. He said, If a problem does not have a solution, it is not a problem from a mathematical standpoint, even from a practical standpoint, in some ways." So the way I look at it for AI is that, just to be provocative, um, if it's not possible ultimately to control AI, should you try?
And that's an interesting question. So, I mean, what I would say is, AI is, are you talking because you're on mute?
I'm good.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, what I was saying is, I mean, AI is not a new development, right? AI is something which has been there for a very long time. AI is capable of doing a lot more things. Like I mentioned earlier, like we should not stop because AI can do a lot of things. It could create problems. Yeah, people are talking about AI taking over jobs and people losing jobs, but they are not talking about how AI can bring like 100 more opportunities or create new jobs, right? No one is talking about that. Yes, we are talking about AI can become so powerful that it will take over the world. And, we will be, there will be less humans. But they're not talking about how we can put the guardrails on how we train the models or how much we should be doing. Things will come. We cannot stop them. We should not stop them because as a human, we are evolving from the stage where I have seen the revolution myself. Websites used to suck long time back when I started, and mobile applications did not even exist to the stage where I have seen the evolution of websites to mobile application to kiosks to smart TVs and OTT platforms where, we used to have channels and all. Things are evolving, and we as a human are needs to evolve as well. So we cannot stop the development of AI, and we should not, right? But what we should do is put the right guardrails in place and bring more and more awareness, because yes, it's going to bring a lot of issues. We are not talking about the deepfakes. We are not talking about how someone can just mimic my voice, create a synthetic voice, create a synthetic human, and then misuse it for fraud purposes, or can misuse it for any other purposes like financial purposes, or maybe just uh, like feeling my identity or any kind of thing. There's a lot more to be thinking about. And from there, we have to come back and think about how do we fix those things? What guardrails do we put so that we are not getting into that uncanny valley where, we cannot come back. But we should not stop.
Mhm. We have 2 minutes left, uh, and it's been a fascinating conversation for me. And I would love to talk again, maybe in a couple of months, if you'd like, and we'll see where the explosion of AI, and in particular generative AI, how this is impacting the conversational side of things, which we haven't discussed today. And even for people who are not following the field closely, the difference between generative AI and conversational AI is perhaps a little bit fuzzy. But we'll keep that for another day, Shamala. Uh, at the end of the podcast, we always ask our guests to formulate a takeaway, a phrase or sentence that we will write down in the summary of this podcast. The most important point, either something that we already said that you'd like to repeat or rephrase, or something that we have not said that you think we should say. So the last word is yours, and it was a great pleasure to have you on the podcast this week.
Yeah. So, yeah, the last word, it's an interesting thing. I mean, usually, what I would say is voice will be your companion. Voice will be your companion. You have to make sure that you're thinking about every other aspect and using it responsibly. It's not just the responsibility of a designer or a developer or a company to design something responsibly. It's also the responsibility of the consumer on the other side to be responsible to use it. So I would say, like, yes, voice will be the companion and voice is the companion. Use it responsibly.
Shabara, thank you very much. Au revoir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.